sun went down, and then you fill him a jug and it pass it around. Mighty, mighty pleasing, Pappy's corn squeezing. White lightning.
2013 might have been one of the hardest years of my life, because that's the year that my grandfather, Earl Richardson, passed away. We may not have been a close grandfather and grandson, but I went to see him in Waco every time that I could, and that my parents would let me. So I consider us to be extremely close. I remember one day sitting in my 9th grade English class, not worrying about anything, and I got called out of class by my dad. And when we walked out into the hallway, he told me that we were going to have to make a trip to Waco over the weekend. I didn't understand anything at the time, and he really didn't explain anything to me either. So I was curious, but I just figured, we were going to go see my grandfather again for fun. I remember getting to Waco, and when we arrived at my grandfather's house, I saw all my family members there, and it just had that sad feeling in the room. When I went back to my grandfather's room, I saw him laying there in some sort of hospital bed with a bunch of wires attached to his chest and everything else. I knew that my grandfather in the past had problems with strokes and heart attacks, but I didn't really understand still. I didn't, comprehend. I remember me and my dad sitting there just talking to my grandfather for a good 15 minutes before we had to leave the room so my other family members could talk. And I was really young at the time, so I spent most of my time in the living room talking to my family members and outside playing on the little playground that we had. I remember me and my dad saying goodnight and telling him that we loved him, and then we went to bed in the other room. I figured, everything would be okay, and I'd just talk to him again in the morning. But when I woke up and went into his room, the hospital bed that he was in and him, they were gone. And I had no idea really what had happened, so I started asking a bunch of questions. I went up to my dad, and he really didn't know what to tell me. But I soon figured out that my grandfather had passed away overnight. And, it was peaceful, but it still really hurt me. He is the reason that I have devoted my life to sports. He's been a figure of that to me for forever. So he is the reason that I wear number 24, because his birthday is 4 days after mine, which is October 24th. So everything that I do, I make sure people know that I'm doing that for him. I picked this song, White Lightning by George Jones, because this is a song that me and my grandfather would listen to every single time we stepped in the car. When he would take me to the river to go swim, or when he would take me to the park to go walk the dogs or anything, we would always end up listening to the song. And I remember complaining about it so much because it's an old song, but my grandfather was really into that stuff. I think the moral of this story is don't take goodbyes for granted. Like I said, I thought everything was going to be okay and that I could go talk to my grandfather in the morning. But if I would have known that that's the last time I saw my grandfather, I would have made sure that I would have sat by his bed all night talking to him and getting whatever questions I have out of the way. So the moral of this story is spend as much time as you can with the people that you love, because you don't know when it's going to be your last.